So what happens now? Which beliefs of ours are reinforced over here, right? The belief that they love my brother more than they love me, and the belief that I'm a mess. Two good motivators that we have in our life, in humankind as such, is one is fear and the other is desire. Conscious, we enter that subconscious state, and then finally we go down and we are like totally unconscious and just in the sleep mode, right? But that little window of time when we're just about to go to sleep is when our subconscious mind is actually open. So when that's open, if these words sink in there, then this entire neurological pathway for it to form will be better and faster. And so that's when I actually shifted careers from being an entrepreneur, and I studied again, and I became a clinical mental health therapist. Every single time we have to get rid of the negative patterns, the fears that disempower us, while we continue manifesting what it is that we want. Because only when both of those happen can true manifestation really happen. The mind, rule number one of the mind is the mind listens to whatever you tell it, right? When we do visualization, right, the mind, as a neurological principle, the mind does not know the difference if you've done something actually or if you've imagined it.
And how can mindset shifts like this help open the doors to wealth and opportunities?
Hi, I'm Kaavya Ramani, a Bollywood actress, best-selling author, and a success mentor based in New York. Manifest WishCraft Conversations is a podcast series on manifestation where I explore the true meaning of success through conversations with inspiring people from around the world. This podcast is also available on Spotify. If this resonates with you, please subscribe, like, and share this episode with 3 more people. It might change their life and yours too. To learn more and be a part of this growing global movement, please search Manifest with Kaavya Ramani. This is my website. Enjoy the episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Manifest WishCraft Conversations. And today we have Miss Rachna K, ma'am, with us today, and we are both based in New York. Rachna, ma'am, is a clinical mental health practitioner specializing in rapid transformational therapy, and which is also called as RTT, and the force behind Unleash the Inner You. Rachna, ma'am, helps people break free from the limiting patterns, overcome fears, and create lasting change by tapping into the power of subconscious mind. And she also guides students to write commendable college admission essays. Today, Rachna ma'am will share her thoughts on mindset, on success and manifestation, and how we kind of transform challenges into breakthroughs. She'll also give us practical insights on how our inner world shapes the lives we live and the simple ways to create clarity, confidence, and personal growth every single day. And just get ready for an inspiring conversation that's both eye opening and actionable. So, welcome, welcome. How are you doing today, ma'am?
Hi, Kaavya. Thank you so much for that invitation, and thank you for such a glamorous introduction, much more than I actually am. But thank you, appreciate
No, no,
that.
no. It's truly amazing to have a podcast with you today. It's my pleasure to be doing a podcast with you.
Thank you.
And before we start, it's kind of really interesting the practice that you do and the kind of career that you have. But we also talked the other day, and you said that you were initially an entrepreneur, and then you shifted kind of your career into, a more mindful career. So, how did this shift from the business world to the mind mastery happen into the mental health world, kind of?
Sure, that's a great question. So I think, so I started out, I'm a graduate from Johns Hopkins University in biomedical engineering. And then afterwards, I got married and I started my career pretty much after that. So initially, as an engineer's mindset, I used to think that, all right, how do we do the systems right? How do we do the processes right? And so my focus was whenever I did textiles or paper, et cetera, that I would focus primarily on the processes and how to make those successful so that we tie in each end of the details. Then we started working with stationery, which was like the later half of my second half, I would say, because after I had my son, then I again went back into the business and spearheaded our stationery business. And in that business, we used to work with, again, it was cross-border. So the US were our clients, such as Walmart, Staples, Target, Office Depot, the retailers over here, and manufacturing would be based out of India. So in that, of course, we set up the process and everything, but the missing link as I grew older, and I think I was getting more and more mature in the business line to understand that it's not just the processes, but what we really have to understand is to how are we able to get people to move, motivate. We had this scenario where we had, one of our vendors, regular vendors, who's been a stalwart in the industry for over 20 years in the stationery business, a great manufacturer, really knows every detail about the business and the dynamics of the industry. But when we gave him the order and he was supposed to deliver 20,000 notebooks, that delivery didn't happen in time. And so all the process in the world couldn't help that because it was the mindset of the individual, right? It was a mindset as to why did not, and why couldn't we see that? Not just me, but all of our various people in the company. Why could we all have not see that happening in time? So that's when I realized later on in life that, how much processes, it's the quality of the people and the quality of their mindset is what we really need to understand. And so that's when I actually shifted careers from being an entrepreneur, and I studied again, and I became a clinical mental health therapist. And that really, really answered a lot of my questions. I didn't know that we had belief systems. I didn't know that our mind works in patterns. I didn't know a lot of those kinds of things. But when I studied, and upon studying is when a lot of these things, came into my knowledge and said, oh my God, that explains it. Now I get it. Now I get as to what was behind this person's thought process, or as to why this vendor of ours was great, but then his whole problem seemed to be execution. And where does that come from? Things like that is what I discovered. So that's what lured me into getting understanding the mind much better through this whole journey of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and kind of what you said, that we are kind of oblivious sometimes to some kind of concepts, but then when we get to know them and we realize that, oh, before I thought I knew everything, but then now when I learn new things, there's a whole new world. There's a whole new concept that you learn, and it's just amazing to know how your journey has transformed drastically. And I also talked about RTT in the introduction, the rapid transformational therapy, right? So can you break down that for us and show us how it helps, reprogram the subconscious mind, whether it's for confidence, clarity, or achieving big goals in general?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, so I guess fundamentally what we have to start is that we all have belief systems, right? We don't even know we have them. And to sort of like, in order to explain RTT, let me go one step backwards, right?
Sure.
So for example, belief systems, when we are born as a child, our brain is making neuronical connections, right? The neurons in our brain, literally at 1 million connections per second, right? When we're babies. But then those are then eventually pruned down to the ones that are more repetitive in our experience of life and the ones that have a stronger emotional intensity. When those two things happen together, repetition and emotional intensity, then those patterns are the ones that stay and those become belief systems. To give an example, so from the ages of about 0 to 7, we pretty much operate from our subconscious mind, right? And so that means that we have no idea of what's right or wrong, good or bad. Everything that we absorb or see or experience just gets absorbed in our subconscious mind, right? So to demonstrate, let's say that this container here is a subconscious mind, right? Now let's say that we're a child of about 3-4 years old, right? And we're sitting on the dining table and playing with our food and eating it and something and making a mess because that's normal behavior, age-appropriate behavior for a 3-4-year-old, right? But for some reason that day, mom is really upset about something and she comes and yells at us like, oh my God, you're making such a mess. You're such a messy child. How am I going to ever clean this up? And so we now, in our subconscious mind, we have a belief that I'm a mess, right? As a 3-4-year-old. Let's say now another day, we're about the same age, let's say, and we're running into mom's arms. And she's like, oh my God, you're going to be so good at sports. You're such a good runner. And so now we have another belief in our mind that, oh, I'm really good at sports, right? Going straight into our subconscious mind. Now let's say another, younger baby is born in the house or whatever. And now mom and dad are giving more attention to the younger sibling. Let's say it's a brother. And so now we say, oh my God, they love the younger baby more than they love me. So let's say that's another belief that goes into it. So for simplicity's sake, let's just work with these 3 beliefs, right? So now around the ages of between 5 and 7, our conscious mind gets put on, right? But we already have existing beliefs in our subconscious mind over here, right? In this case, we have, I'm a mess, I'm good at sports, and they love my brother more than they love me, right? So now that we have existing beliefs, now fast forward, we're 10, 11 years old, and all of a sudden, mom walks into our room and says that, oh my God, see, your room's such a mess. And we're like, yep, because our belief is that, yeah, I'm a mess. So we are able to say yes and get that belief reinforced, right? Now let's say we're on the soccer field and we're kicking the ball into a goal and it doesn't go in, right? It doesn't go in. But what's our belief? Our belief is that we're good at sports. So the existing action that we did does not conform to our belief. It doesn't fit, right? So then what are we going to most likely do?
Rebel.
We're going to try again, right? Most likely we're going to try again. And so let's say the next time we get it in, we're like, yep, see, we got it in, that my belief and my action are the same, that my belief of being good at sports is reinforced, right? Now, let's say the third day, grandma comes in at home and she's like, oh my God, your brother is so much cleaner than you are. So what happens now? Which beliefs of ours are reinforced over here, right? The belief that they love my brother more than they love me, and the belief that I'm a mess.
You're messy.
Right, exactly, right? So the beliefs that we form are the ones that are responsible for our perceptions. And then we try to then operate everything to either reinforce that belief. Now, if this is the case, and these beliefs form pretty early in life, are we doomed? Is this the way we're going to have to live the rest of our life? What do you think?
Well, we can change it if we want to.
Absolutely right. You're so right, Kaavya. We can change them if we want to, because the mind is neuroplastic, right? That means that it can go ahead and change depending on the circumstances and the desire, right, of what we want. Now, how do we change it? How do we go around changing it? There are two ways. Either we do it from the subconscious mind, that means when we're awake and alert, and every time that comes up that, oh, I'm a mess, comes up, and we say, okay, now I don't really want to be a mess, right? What are two good motivators? Two good motivators that we have in our life, in humankind as such, as one is fear and the other is desire. And both are equally good. But fear has a tendency of driving us more. So let's say this person now has become, is there in their 20s and now they're working, etc. But they're still messy and they don't even know where it's coming from, right? But now they've decided that their boss has decided that they need to do a presentation. If they don't do a good job of organizing it properly and presenting it properly, they're going to get fired. So being fired is a fear motivator, but it works, right? So they will go ahead and say every time they sit there and do the presentation, they're like, all right, I'm going to be a mess, but I'm going to try to fix it up. So they will consciously, at every step, when that messiness comes up, it's like literally having your conscious mind and taking out the piece, from the conscious mind. So in that sense, it can come out, but it's a process. And the risk is that it can actually, you may not succeed and you might become a mess again, right? Because it's like you're trying to get it out, but if it doesn't come out, you've fallen, right? So that's one way of doing it. The other way is actually tapping into your subconscious mind. So taking, literally allowing your conscious mind to not be there and working with someone, with like a therapist, and to go ahead and release those beliefs, which if you go ahead and release not just some of the memories, right? This is the one that, let's say, for example, you were when grandmother came and said that you're a mess. So you have to release that one. Then you have to maybe release another memory. Once you release enough of the emotional attachments that you have to that memory, that belief actually comes crumbling down. You don't have to do every single memory because there'll be thousands and thousands of them. You just need to do a few core ones in which you can go ahead and take out that whole belief that I'm a mess, because you will realize. So this person will realize that it wasn't really me. I believed that because I was told that I was messy, right? As a child.
Yeah.
And because I was told that and I absorbed everything as a child, that means I believed it, because we were never born messy, right? We became messy as per our environment because we believe that. And then once we get down to that charge, emotional charge, let's say the first one that came up when mom said you're such a mess, and we can break that emotional charge, that's when we can actually completely get rid of, that entire system of being messy. And then we can choose. Then it becomes a true choice, no longer our default pattern. it becomes our choice of, do I want to be messy? If I want, yeah, it's okay. It doesn't really matter much. But right now I need to really be focused. I need to be clean. I need to be organized and do this presentation right. Then it becomes your choice and no longer a default pattern. If that's the clarity of it.
It does. So the part where you go to a therapist and we do the whole therapy, that's RTT.
Exactly.
Yes.
So part of what RTT is, exactly, that was going to be my next lead into that,
Mhm.
is just that. So the idea is that we all have self-sabotaging systems. All of us do. Every single human being does, right? Because we all have an environment in which we grew up, which was positive and negative. And what is positive to us could be negative to somebody else, right? So therefore, when we are in that environment, then it is now up to us as to what is hampering it in our life. Right. So as another example, let's say that somebody didn't get approval from their father when they were young, right? When they were a child. Fast forward, now they're 30, 40 years old. In their life, they continue to seek approval from somebody else, whether it be your boss, whether it be your spouse, whether it be your children, whether it be your friends. You continue to seek approval. And so you make decisions on seeking approval. As an example of what could go wrong, so is that, let's say that you have someone, someone's coming to you with a really nice proposal and said, oh my God, you've been so successful in your life. And, we think that you're a great fit because you're such an achiever to help us with the proposal. And can you help us fund it? And so, you're looking for that high of approval. And here's somebody who's just been giving you lots of approval up front. So they've taken your money. And so even though you reasonably know how to analyze a proposal, but because they've triggered those buttons that make you feel really special and where your need is to seek approval, then you might have a tendency of going ahead with that proposal without even going into all the details to see if it's worth it or not. And then let's say they don't pay you back, but they're still praising you that, that you're so trustworthy. And, we know that you'll trust us, etc. And again, they're pushing those buttons of what you need is your approval. Then you might be even lax again, even though it's not good for you. It's not good for your own growth. It's not good for your own, safety of your money or your future. But because you're in this realm of needing approval, that's part of what your pattern is, then you will make those wrong decisions that will prevent you from growing in the right way. Right.
Wow.
And so that's what we do in RTT is that we go ahead and we work with, okay, what's your core issue, right? So I had a lady who came to me that, I don't have a voice. I can't express myself in front of my husband, right? I don't know how to be able to ask for what I want in front of my husband. So that was her core issue, that I don't know how to ask for what I want in front of my husband. And then so in the process of RTT is what we do is that we ask them, okay, let me just go back again. So RTT is a therapy process that encounters 4 different kinds of therapies altogether. The first is psychotherapy, where you talk about what the issues are and what you'd like to get done and what it is. That's the first part. Second part is CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, and we try to understand what are your patterns. What we just talked about? What are the underlying patterns that you have? The third part of that, and this is all done under hypnotherapy. And hypnotherapy is nothing but just a relaxed state of being. So that way, when we make, me as a therapist, when I make a suggestion, like go back down to where did this idea of, not having a voice come from, then you're able to access some memory that you're comfortable with accessing from your subconscious mind. Because we may not have that memory in our conscious awake state, but in our subconscious, something will come up that will be related to it. And then we have to address that memory because each memory makes up the emotional charge that we have, right? And the fourth part of it is neuralistic programming. Once we go ahead and undo that emotional charge during the session, but we can't leave you like that, right? Because you're still in a negative state of mind. And there's a void now. We've undone something. And the mind is such that the neurons have to be fired, right? So where do they fire? So we have to give a pathway where it'll get fired, and it'll be fired into something that we do want. Saying like, I choose to have a voice. I choose to be able to stand up for myself when I'm with my husband. And we go ahead and put those thoughts or whatever you've told us that you wanted, put those back towards the end of the session. So now that there's a void, we fill up that gap with these new neurons firing away, right? And each session has to do every single one of those steps. And at the end of it, we give you a recording where you listen to that recording hopefully when you're sleeping or when you're just getting awake. The reason for that is when is our subconscious mind open? Our subconscious mind is pretty much open when we are falling asleep, right?
Yes.
Conscious, we enter that subconscious state, and then finally we go down and we are like totally unconscious and just in the sleep mode, right? But that little window of time when we're just about to go to sleep is when our subconscious mind is actually open. So when that's open, if these words sink in there, then this entire neuronical pathway for it to form will be better and faster. Why will it be better and faster? Because if I were to tell you right now, okay, listen to this audio as you're walking on the street that says that I will be able to stand up to my husband and express what I want, you'd be like, yeah, right, I can't do that. That's not, I can't do that. So what we're doing consciously, we're probably counteracting what we want. So that's why it's best to do it when the subconscious mind is open and your conscious mind is falling asleep, is because then we are not allowing our conscious mind to interfere in the process, right? Not that that's the only way you can do it. You can still do it if you're willing and open to go ahead and listen to it as you're walking or whatever. But that's usually most effective, is when it goes into the subconscious trait.
Perfect. This is like the base of what we're going to discuss ahead, because so first of all, what are your thoughts on manifestation?
Yeah. So just to close up with that, one of the things that we all as human beings need to understand is that we learn our mental habits through our emotions. So therefore, in order to get rid of our mental habits, we have to undo them again through our emotions, right? So facing our emotions is key to that. If we're not willing to face where this came from and to have that emotional charge that has been buried within us and to undo that, then it's very difficult to get rid of that. So for that, we have to be aware. We have to be mindful. We have to be able to assess it. All right, what's wrong? Here I was feeling anxious. Where's this anxiety coming from? Why am I feeling, unrested? And we have to dig deeper within ourselves to be able to understand, okay, what's going wrong here? And where's that coming from? So that's just to close up the RTT part of it as to why. To help answer your question in manifestation, yes. So manifestation in that sense is key, right? But let's go back to it. Let's say that I'm going to go straight into what I call the rules of the mind, right? Because there's a way that the mind functions, and I conduct these workshops, which are called Getting to Know Our Mind Better. And I believe that every human being needs to know how the mind functions at a basic level, because then you know when to listen to your mind, when not to listen to your mind. As we just talked about, there are negative patterns that we all have, right? And then how to do that. What is the effect? So to get into manifestation, so the first thing is, the first rule of the mind really is that the mind does exactly what we tell it, right? Whether it's good or bad, right or wrong, it does not know. It does exactly what we tell it. To give an example here is, let's say you're a student and you say to yourself, I hate studying, right? And so the mind's job is just to do exactly what you tell it. So if you told it, I hate studying. So, okay, backtrack.
You'll find proofs.
Yeah, exactly. So fundamentally, our mind is wired for two things. Fundamentally, only two things it's wired for. It's wired for, number one, to keep us surviving, right? Like, let's say in the ancient mind was like, if there's a tiger following us and we had to find ways to run, hide places, etc. So that's survival, right? Number one. And number two, the second fundamental function of the mind is to keep us away from pain. So if we put our hand in the fire, it gives us pain, so it's supposed to prevent us from doing that. But pain no longer just means physical pain. Pain also means emotional pain, right? So if we say to ourselves, going back to it, I hate studying, ding, 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 to the mind, what does that mean? That means that, oh, studying is giving me pain. If studying is giving me pain, I need to avoid studying. So now what will the mind do? So then
Stay away from it.
When you're as a student, you're sitting down reading a book, the mind will say, oh, remember, you hate studying, it's giving you pain. So the mind may make you feel drowsy, you'll fall asleep. The mind may make you hate studying, remember? So you're gonna try to read something and understand it, but you won't be able to understand it because it's giving you pain. So the mind's job is to keep you away from that pain of studying, right? And it's going to try to do whatever distractions to keep you from studying. But now let's take it the other way, because manifestation, this is the important other part of manifestation. If the same student were to say to the mind, I love studying, I love to study, would that work?
It would.
It would. So it would work after some time. The reason why is because here we have someone who has been saying, I hate studying, I hate studying, I hate studying, right? So now when they say, I love studying, the first thing in mind is, wait, you're lying to yourself. You don't love studying, right? You actually hate studying, right? So because hating studying is a familiar pattern to us, right? So the mind, for us to manifest that I love studying, it has to first accept, okay, I've been hating studying, right? I've been hating studying. I've been telling myself that I have to accept that feeling. I have to acknowledge my whole thought process and say that I've been hating studying because I've not been able to do it. And so instead of saying I love studying, it probably should say something that is a good transition point. So for example, if we're studying history, and we say, I hate studying history. And if instead we can reframe that and say something along the lines of, oh, I should study history because it'll help me in learning how to make decisions better. Something that we are willing to believe, something that resonates with us as a person. So if we go ahead and transition and make those things our lines first, what we say to ourselves, then every time we stand to study history, it's like, I want to study history because it's going to teach me how to make better decisions. And if that's something that resonates with us, then we'll be able to go down to do that. That's one of the reasons why the concept of law of attraction doesn't necessarily work, is because every time we say, I love studying, but in the back of our head, or we're saying, I hate studying. So it's like we're taking a step forward, but we're taking a step backward, and we're not moving forward. So first we have to acknowledge, we have to say something that we are willing to believe. And then eventually we should be able to say, I love studying, as well. But that transition point is very, very important for the purposes of manifestation.
Yes, and also one of the key concepts that you kind of have already told us about is rewiring, right? You told us about digging back in and trying to get new perspectives to life, and trying to change your thought patterns and belief systems in order for you to kind of be a better version of yourselves. That's what rewiring does for us to manifest. And yes, manifestation is kind of where it's constantly happening. It's just but what you have to do is be mindful and think mindfully for the manifestation to happen in your favor, in your side. The thing that you want in your life should be something that you think about, and not the things that are negatively affecting you. So how do thoughts and beliefs and daily mental habits kind of shape our reality, and how is mindful thinking helpful in manifesting what you want healthily?
Absolutely. So, all of us want success, right? Every single individual wants success, and what success means to them is different, right? So first, I think in that sense that what do we really want to manifest? That is something that we have to decide amongst ourselves. And it's usually in percentages. Of course, everyone wants to have a good career, wants to have financial abundance, wants to have a good family life, wants good colleagues and friends, and deeper connections as such, and good health. So in that sense, we've covered our 5 bases of what we want, where we want to have manifestations happen. So, but again, for manifestations to happen well, is that and even in our Indian concept, they always say, you have to get rid of your samskars, right? In order for us to manifest what we want, it's a continuous process of course, reaching for what we want, but we have to get rid of the negative. So it's like a continuous filter. Get what you want, but get rid desire and eliminate the fears. You go
The trade-offs.
exactly. It's more like a path. It's like a spiral path, because your desire is what's going to keep you going to go upward. But and part of your faith is there. But your fears are what's going to pull you down, right? So we have to eliminate our fears. Otherwise, as much as you want to spiral upwards, if we still have those fears, then that will bring us down. So if we go back to the example of, let's say, the lady who wanted to have a voice with her husband, right? So now that voice, her first thing, because the first thing that was bothering her was her ability to not being able to stand up with her husband, right? So that was the first thing of her mind. But you can imagine that not being able to stand up for herself is probably manifesting in a lot of other areas, right? Whether it be with her family overall, whether it be in her work or career basis, whether it be in her finances, being able to stand up and saying that, hey, I deserve more money, right? It could be, it most likely is all of these areas where standing up. But she just chose that because that was probably the first thing that was bothering her, that she felt that if I could sort of fix this up, because that was too emotionally entangled. So she probably felt that if I was too emotionally entangled, if I could free myself from this, then I could probably free myself from the other areas as well, which is true, right? So first, if we take care of that, then what automatically starts happening is that then you do get a little bit more empowerment in all of your other areas of manifesting. And so, but now let's say that she's in her career and she's realized, okay, she's not charging enough. She should be charging more. Or people are like, they say that, oh, I'll pay you later. And she's not being firm enough that, no, I need to be paid first before I start, because she's not used to standing up for herself. And so now that she has chosen that, okay, I choose to stand up for myself. I choose to stand up for what I want. And so now again, she comes back down to this fear in her career that, okay, will I lose my customers if I start charging them more, right? Will I lose my customers if I ask them to pay me in advance, right? Because that's her next set of fears coming up. And so she's like, what does she do? She has to deal with those fears to move up in the manifestation of her career path of it, right? And her financial abundance part of it. So she has to get rid of those fears. So again, where are those fears coming from? Because it's maybe there is a money pattern in there too. One part of it is not being able to stand up for it. But another pattern could be that believing that, oh, I don't deserve the money because, it's the men who deserve the money in the family, because we've been brought up that way. A lot of women especially have been brought up that way. So if that is another pattern that needs to be recognized, and that again has to be emotionally undone, and said that, no, it's not just the men, that I too can earn, I too can go ahead and demand, I too can ask for more. And then to be able to do that in the right way. So that's what I'm saying. Every single time we have to get rid of the negative patterns, the fears that disempower us, while we continue manifesting what it is that we want. Because only when both of those happen can true manifestation really happen.
Yes, and you talked about how standing up for yourself kind of and believing in yourself is something that you do in order to manifest, especially that happened in the case you were talking about, the woman. But in general too, many of the people struggle with self-doubt and kind of, low confidence, low self-esteem. So what are some habits or practical ways to flip our mindset and start believing in ourselves more?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So, I mean, so the first thing is like, whenever that starts creeping, what's a dialogue going on here? You have to just observe that. What are you saying to yourself, right? As like literally as if you're sitting on a back seat and just watching your mind. The mind for all of us truly is a separate entity by itself, because it's like the software in our computer, right? The hardware is the brain and the body, etc. But the mind is like the software, just keeps on playing on a default mode anyway. So we have to recognize that on the one hand, as to when we are having self-doubt, what comes up in our mind? What does our mind's chatter keep on saying to it, right? Once we are aware of that, we have to immediately counter it. If we are in a mild state, right, then we're able to say things like that, no, that, I'm fine. I'm going to be able to do it. I'm going to crush it. This is it. I got this, etc. Right? And put ourselves in a state of mind. So for example, every time I personally go into a therapy session with a client, right before I do that, I take about 5 minutes and I say to myself, no, that we got this client of mine is healed. Whatever they've come for, they are definitely healed of their issue, and we're going to go in it and resolve the whole thing. So I've literally psyched up myself and into that belief, right, at that moment, that we are going to do this no matter what happens. We are going to heal ourselves together as a team. We're going to do that. So one, before you go into anything, just psych yourself up. That really, really makes a difference, because that's like I said, the mind, rule number one of the mind is the mind listens to whatever you tell it, right? Rule of the number two of the mind is that whatever the pictures and the words that you say to your mind is what you manifest, right? So if you have this picture of that, I'm going to do really well in in my studies, I'm going to really ace that test, etc., and you can see yourself getting that A plus on it or whatever those numbers are that you're looking 100% plus, etc. And then you just visualize yourself and stay in that feeling. Again, feelings are the most important. It's not just the intellectual thought, but feelings are truly what you drive. And that's the most difficult because unfortunately we've been, over time, we've been told that don't pay attention to your feelings, right? There's a reason for that, which we can get into later. But you got to feel that. And so when you feel that manifestation, you're more likely to make that happen, right? So that's number two. Number three, if you're in a state of like more of an anxious state of, okay, like, oh my God, I did something really wrong. What do I do now? Like, what do I do? Then the first thing one should try to do is to go ahead and take a few deep breaths. And there's a scientific reason for this. You take a few deep breaths because right now, your neuronical connections in your brain are continuously telling you, they're firing away, saying that, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I made such a mess, and they're firing away like you're so bad, you're such an idiot, you don't know what to do, right? All of these thoughts are going on. When you take a few deep breaths, these neurological connections actually just slow down and they actually stop vibrating at that level or hitting electromagnetically the way they are, right? Electrically, rather. And so taking those few deep breaths actually does that in your brain. So when you stop having those thoughts, then you are ready to go ahead and proactively have the thoughts of, no, it wasn't that bad. Let me figure this out. Let me take by piece to see what happens. Also, we have to realize that when something is overwhelming for us, the first thing the mind does is stop. That's the nature of the mind. It's not our fault. If we think that something is overwhelming and we can't do anything about it, I can't function, no, there's nothing, it's not our fault. Our mind functions that way. If something is overwhelming, the mind will just stop. So when it stops, then it is really telling you to take it piece by piece and then to move forward with that.
Yes, and you kind of, break it down for us, and we kind of got the whole concept, and you kind of answered a lot of my questions that I had along the way. So I'm going to skip around a little bit, and I want to ask you about productivity, because procrastination and, distractions, they kind of kill productivity. And how can rewiring the mind, as we're talking about, and mindful thinking, how can these things boost focus and make success happen really fast?
Sure. So let's get into procrastination then. So procrastination is actually an issue. It's not laziness, right? It's not physical laziness. When do we procrastinate? We procrastinate when we are like ready to do something, but then we said, instead of working this, okay, I'll answer a few emails. I'll go, I forgot to put something on the stove. I'll go do that, right? We're ready to do something, but somewhere along the line, we keep on delaying and delaying and delaying, right? Now, there are a couple of reasons for that. One, procrastination is because something is so overwhelming for us to take on, right? And the first thing the mind does, it's shut down, it stops. So because it's shutting down, we're not able to move forward, right? What do we do in that moment of time? We take a few deep breaths, right? Reset ourselves and make a conscious decision that we're going to just start, right? Because once those neurons in our brain start firing of starting something, then it spirals up into many things and we can move forward, right? That's one. What's the other thing that happens? Sometimes there's a deeper reason for the procrastination, right? Let's say that that somebody wants to become from the sake of the youth, let's say you want to become a firefighter, right? And so you want to move on and become a firefighter, but maybe somewhere along the lines, you want to do it, and every time you go for that exam or for those things, you're just not able to go, right? So you're procrastinating. Somewhere you probably believe that you don't deserve it or that you can't get it. Fundamentally, we have three buckets of rejection patterns, right? The first is, I can't get what I want. Maybe when we were a child, we wanted a cake in the window and we just couldn't get it because everybody was in a rush. We couldn't get that cake. So I can't get what I want is a fundamental rejection pattern. The second fundamental rejection pattern is, I don't belong. I wanted to go to school here, but I couldn't get in. I don't belong in that school if I really wanted to be in. So it's like, or I'm here in this school, but the people around me are not my friends. So I don't belong in this school because nobody is like me here. I don't belong. That's number two. And the third one is that I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not good looking enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not, athletic enough, whatever. So any kind of rejection issue will fall into any one of these three brackets. If you look at it and if you start doing it, or there will be percentages of that, but these are primarily the only three. That's it, right? And so in procrastination, what usually happens is that it falls into one of these three. And more likely it falls into either the one that I can't get it, I can't have what I want because I'm not good enough or because I don't belong, right? And so once we realize that that's what's procrastinating for us, then that's what we have to release that pattern, understand that within us, and then be able to move forward. That, no, I deserve it. I deserve to be a fighter because I know I can be really good at this, right? So procrastination is its own beast, which is not, it's not necessarily simple. It's got a far more emotional layers down its line.
Yeah, and procrastination is kind of a way for people to delay things. It's like a way for people to avoid doing stuff. And as you mentioned, all the three things that you mentioned, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve to be here, or I don't belong. All of these are the things that actually in real life really common in people's life, and their thoughts are really, moving around all these. But moving towards a little bit of manifestation over here, we talked before this, we talked about, you have these pictures in your head of you being the perfect person and you being able to achieve something. So that's kind of visualization, if I'm not wrong. And it's a really powerful part of manifestation. So I'd like to ask you here, how powerful is visualization and, mental imagery when it comes to manifesting your dreams into actual reality?
Extremely powerful, extremely powerful. I'll explain why as well. It's extremely powerful because we have to understand that if you look at the mind, we have two basic, I would say, areas of the mind: the conscious mind, when we're consciously active, and the subconscious mind. Everything, so we operate pretty much 5% about from our conscious mind, and we operate in our daily lives 95% from our subconscious mind, right? So let's say that if and this is like an iceberg, right? Our conscious mind is at the tip of the iceberg, and the subconscious mind is the huge long thing that's under the water.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if let's say our objective is that we want to be in great health, right? We want to lose weight and really be in good health, etc. And so our conscious mind is saying that. So let's say this is a direction of losing weight and having good health, right? For the iceberg, it wants to move in this direction. But let's say the bottom, the subconscious mind, has these patterns that saying, emotion that where for some reason you don't believe that you can be good looking, you don't believe that that you deserve to be good looking, or that if you're good looking, somebody can harm you. If you have all of these patterns that are in your subconscious mind, then no matter how much you want to move in this direction, you'll make a little bit of a difference, a gap. But most of you, every single time you try, you're going to be moving in this direction of not losing weight because your subconscious mind has all of these patterns that are stuck in it, right? So how do you get out them? When we do visualization, right, the mind, as a neurological principle, the mind does not know the difference if you've done something actually or if you've imagined it, right? It doesn't know that difference. So therefore, when you visualize, when you see yourself that I have actually lost, this is what I look like when I'm 20 pounds thinner, and the other part of it is really, really feeling it. It's not intellectual. Like I said, because our mental habits are from our emotional habits, our emotional patterns, we have to undo our emotional patterns to get to the mental habits that we want, right? So on all of those emotional patterns are in our subconscious, right? And so therefore the visualization, when we start feeling that this is what I look like, and this is what I'm doing, and this is what my life is like, and this is what success feels to me like when I've lost this weight that I want to, then, and every time we do that and we build and build on that neuronal patterns, make it far stronger and stronger, then eventually at some point of time, those neurons of not being able to lose weight will operate less. And those neurons of losing weight and looking really good and manifesting what we want in terms of success get really stronger. It's like one of the examples I give to teenagers is that if they still remember Cookie Monster from Sesame Street. I don't know if you remember the character, right? So
Yes.
Cookie Monster would only eat cookies, right? Would only eat cookies because Cookie Monster is wired neurologically to only eat cookies, right? But can you get Cookie Monster to eat fruit, right? Can that happen? Because he's not wired to eat fruit. So rule number, rule number 3 was in the mind's like, the mind learns by repetition. So Cookie Monster number 3 has been eating cookies and repeating eating cookies all the time. That's all he eats. So he's been wired to eat cookies more and more, as per rule number 3 of the mind. You learn by repetition. Rule number 4 of the mind is that the mind likes to go back to what is familiar, right? So here's Cookie Monster eating these cookies, but he says, hey, no, I want to try the fruit. I really want to try the fruit, right? He does it, let's say for once, he like puts that aside, does it for once and said, okay. Now he tries it another day. Now the third day, he said, okay, he wants to eat cookies, but he really wants to have the fruit. So his mind is in a constant turmoil because the mind is pulling him back to eating cookies the third day because it's like, wait, you can't eat fruit. You're supposed to be eating cookies. But he really, really wants to eat food, but his mind, and it's not his fault. His mind is pulling him back for that familiar pattern because those neurons are firing much more strongly. So those are the most difficult 10 seconds of Cookie Monster's life when his mind is telling him to pick fruit by the existing patterns, to pick cookies by the existing patterns, but he wants to pick fruit. So at that moment of time, if he is able to make that decision that no, forget the fruit, forget the familiar pattern, forget the cookies, forget the familiar pattern, I want the fruit. And he picks up the fruit and he takes it and he has it. That's when those most difficult gruesome 10 seconds is when he's succeeding to get rid of an old pattern and form a new pattern. And so if he keeps on doing it, keeps on having the fruit over the cookies, now he's formed a new pattern in his mind of eating fruit. So Cookie Monster can actually eat fruit and not have cookies anymore because he himself has neuroplastically changed his own mindsets, right?
So yeah, you kind of answered another question of mine of how to rewire, how to change your thoughts, using neuroplasticity. So people kind of love being in their comfort zones. They like being comfy in their familiar spaces where they know everything, how it works, and they know what's there in what place. So they're like familiar there. But the moment they want to or they desire to at least get out of their comfort zones, it kind of becomes hard for them to do so. And so many of the people like feel very stuck with, money or abundance, and how can mindset shifts like this help open the doors to wealth and opportunities, because we all want to get out of their comfort zones, right? So how does this work?
Absolutely. And you've had a very good point. So for example, we know that people who win the lottery, right? Who win the lottery within a year or so, they become bankrupt again. Why is that, right? Why is that? Because you rightly said it. Because we are so much in our patterns and that comfort zone of not having money, they were like, oh my God, I have money. I don't even know what to do with money now. So because they don't know how to hold money, or that they have been experiencing lack and scarcity in so much of their life, they're like, one of a sudden they have this abundance that they have not rewired themselves to. Then they will go ahead and relive those patterns of scarcity because that's what they're wired for, right? That's how they wired themselves. And so they will go and spend and spend and spend and spend because, or borrow or loan or give, because now there are other factors also involved, but not to make it complicated, but just because they've been used to living in scarcity, that abundance is unfamiliar, right? The familiar pattern is being in scarcity. So then they have to get rid of that money to be able to play that pattern of being in scarcity again, right? So now what do we have to do? First, we have to create our own abundance mindset for them to win the lottery. Even if anyone's planning to go ahead and play the lottery, first go ahead and try to create yourself an abundance mindset first, right? Which means that, think about it, that if you really had that, whatever, $1 million, what would you do with it? What would you really do with it, right? How would you, maybe some part, depending on where you are, of course, in schemes, some certain fundamentals are necessary, like your home and your school and your kids' school and food and shelter and all of that stuff. But apart from that, then what else would you do with it, right? So you have to plan yourself out there. All right, I would invest in this. I would invest in this. I would go ahead and do the research work online, which everything's available. Like, okay, what should I invest in? Where should I, what are good schools? What are people to invest in? What are the kind of people I should hang out with, right? All of those kinds of things. So one has to go ahead and already rewire their scarcity mindset to, if I had the money, what would I go ahead and do? And then start doing that. So when the money actually comes in, you've already laid a foundation of these familiar things of what you would go ahead and spend your time, money, and energy on. And that's how you would actually do step by step the reprocessing of abundance there. You know?
Yeah, and a lot of times I have noticed this, and I tell people to do so too. We kind of plan ahead of time, and that we put details into the dreams or into the visualizations that we make people do. Because when you have the details and everything ready before you get it, so then when you get it and when you achieve the success and the goals that you want, you're not thrown off guard and you're not like, oh my God, what to do now? It's done. You have your whole life planned after you reach a certain point. So for example, I want to go for a Europe trip. So then I plan ahead of time. I'm not even sure when I'm going to go there. I'm not even sure if I'm going to get the time to do so. But I plan ahead of time. I plan the itinerary. I plan what place I want to go, what food I want to eat, with whom I want to go, and how many days and whatever. Everything I plan it out. And so literally now I'm living my dream in my own mind. And that's how the frequency reaches the universe. And then when you get it, and then we're able to go to that trip, and it's so real, and you're not dreaming. You it's real for you, and it's not overwhelming for you. And that's how you handle situations. Thank you so much for bringing that up, because that's where being eligible to receive comes into the picture. And when we talk about manifestation, affirmations, just how I talked about, I am living this life. I am this person who's really beautiful and kind and helpful, and being grateful and positive. All these things kind of come together for us to be able to manifest. So how can affirmation and gratitude and positive self-talk, how can that really rewire the brain for success, and how do we make it work consistently?
Absolutely, that's a great question. So if you look at it on the scale of vibrations, right? That's another whole chapter is on vibrations. So all of our emotions vibrate at certain frequency. We also have emotions that go in terms of intensity, right? So for example, the emotion of anger, it goes right from the intensity of being, let's say, mild, right? Mild is like annoyance or irritated, right? Is mild anger, to being rage. And rage is high intensity of anger, right? So emotions are fine. Again, emotions come from where? They come from our belief system, right? What would get us angry, right? There are common things that get us. So, for example, if somebody is if somebody is being mean to a pet, some people it doesn't make any difference, but for some people it rages them away, right? For some people, an issue with, like, if you're treating a woman, a girl, downplaying her or condescending her, it gives them rage, right? Well, there are others it doesn't make a difference, right? So the first thing I would say in that whole process of visualization of vibration, first we have to see as to, in terms of our emotions, where are we vibrating, in what circumstance, right? Are we at rage level, or are we at irritation level? And whatever that is, we have to first accept and feel our emotion, right? And people are like, okay, what do I do? How do I feel my emotion, right? And so you just like really sit there and you just like simply. So there are thoughts and there are emotions, right? Thoughts and feelings. Now, thought is a trigger, right? Let's say that, if somebody even talks about, I made fun of this girl, that's something that triggers me. Like, why would you do that? Why would you be purposely, making fun of somebody like that, right? So that's a trigger. That my feeling here is getting me into a state of anger, right? So I need to feel and accept my anger. That's one. the issue with our emotions is not what we do with it. It's not what we do with it internally. It's what we do with them externally, right? It is so important for us to accept our emotion internally first, right? Because then our outward behavior can be amended. Now, so for example, if I am really angered that somebody's saying that they were mean to this girl, then I am enraged because that's something I don't resonate with. But what am I going to do about it? So I can take a stand to, am I going to be mean back to that person? Am I going to hit that person? That's one part of anger that does in terms of behavior. Or am I going to go ahead and do something like take a stand up for that girl, or be able to, in a calm voice, say that, okay, and ask questions. Oh, why would you do that? What motivates you to be mean to that girl? And just maybe have that person ask themselves questions and realize themselves that maybe they're doing something wrong. So it may be my internal rage, but my behavior is what determines as to how I'm using my emotion. So acceptance of emotion is very, very important for us to go ahead and decide which action we will outwardly take in that circumstance. And each circumstance is different, right? Again, let's just be on the point of anger. Where does anger come from? Anger pretty much has three buckets also. We feel angry when we feel unsafe, right? If someone is trying to hurt us or we feel unsafe, then we're going to run away or fight, like the usual fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, right? Those are the four ways that we face our fears, or in that sense, right? So anger is like, no, I'm going to fight this off, right? So if we're in an unsafe situation. The second bucket of anger is when we feel hurt. Somebody has hurt us or did not meet our expectations and we feel that we've been hurt, etc., or we've been treated unfairly. That's a second bucket of anger. The third bucket of anger is really when somebody calls out on our weakness. Oh, you're such a people pleaser. No, I'm not a people pleaser. You are, but somebody called you out on it and you're like, okay, yeah. So you get angry at that. So if you look at it, all anger pretty much falls into these three buckets, right? So if we acknowledge our anger and then we decide what to do with them, that's why emotions, like, if you're angry at somebody on the street, it's like you cannot, anger is something that leads to violence very quickly. Therefore, it's so important for us to first accept our anger and decide our track as to what are we going to do about it, right? What are the positive steps that we can take? Now, so all of these emotions, right? If it's like a conical, you have things like shame, which is all the way on the bottom, right? You have frustration, which is down there. You have anger. You have the tipping points to going from all of these, what we call negative emotions, to go into positive emotions of joy and happiness and peace, is gratitude. That is your tipping points, right? So that's why when we have the gratitude manifestation, why is it so powerful? Because it is fundamentally the single most emotion that we can put in, that we can alter our state from these negative states down here to the positive states. The tipping point is gratitude. If we can put ourselves into gratitude, even if we're angry, and I said, you know what, I'm really angry with this person, but that gives me the opportunity to decide, what do I want to do about it? Do I want to take it up as a stand? Do I want to stand up? Do I want to make this an overall cause? Do I want to just say something about myself, be able to express myself when I couldn't earlier? So that if we put ourselves in that position of gratitude and say that, you know what, I'm thankful, even though it was a tough situation, I'm thankful for having it because I now have the ability to do something more about it. And that's when we can go ahead and transform ourselves into what it is that we want, right? But the part I was just briefly alluding to is that thoughts, if we stay in our thoughts, what's called rumination, right? When we stay in our thoughts, we ruminate in them. Oh my God, this was so bad. I can't believe this happened. I'm such an idiot. Oh, again, this person should have said this. And we keep on ruminating on those same thoughts again and again and again, right? What that does, again, in our brain pattern is that goes ahead and cements the neurological pattern, right? It makes it stronger and stronger because we are thinking those thoughts. So therefore, the mind keeps on going around in them and we are making them stronger and stronger and stronger. So if we feel bad that this person did something, then by just looping around in our own thoughts, we're making our relationship with that person even more difficult. We're wiring that stronger and stronger, right? Now, how do we release that? Emotions is the way to release them, because if we allow ourselves to feel our emotions, not ruminate in our thoughts, but if we allow ourselves to feel our emotion that, damn, I was the one who was hurt in the situation, right? I felt hurt. Maybe the other person didn't plan to hurt me, but I'm the one who felt hurt. And we feel our own hurt. We feel it, we accept it. Then once we do that, that entire rigmarole of that falls apart, because we are releasing that strong emotional memory by accepting our own emotion. Usually, when do we have problems? When is there things like addictions, or when is there anxiety, depression, addictions, things like that? When are all of these kind of things happening? They all happen primarily because we don't accept our own emotion in that process, right? We see the external, what's happening outside, and somebody else is to blame. But when we accept our own emotion, then we are able to release it within ourselves, and our entire ability to what we say outwardly can be completely changed. So it's so important that in order to manifest, we first have to accept our situation, our emotion, to move forward.
Yes, definitely. And thank you so much. That was kind of really I could say eye-opening, and the way you connected gratitude to, becoming a better version of yourself, it's really amazing. And as a young person myself, I feel that knowledge that you're giving right now, knowledge that you're providing right now is really helpful, especially for the youth, because there's a lot there's a lot of things that we have to work on in order for us to be mindful people and mindful thinkers. But then if we're not even aware of the things that we need to do, then we're just not, we're oblivious to the fact that we don't know things, and we don't have the access to them then. And talking about youth now, we're me myself being a sophomore in high school, I think now, thinking about college is something that we all do. And you are also a really expert guy in helping people write admission essays for colleges. And so writing those essays is more than just words on paper, right? It's how you help students to like discover their own hidden talents, and discover their authentic story, and then showcase their mindset and their personality. That's what I have heard. Would you like to kind of tell us more about what colleges want to see in students?
Sure. You said it very rightly, in that sense that, this entire journey of preparation for college is really, really that. And I think in that sense, it's a great thing, because since as kids going into school, it's always been one thing after the other, one thing after the other. You're just growing with classes, your extracurriculars, your interests, everything. When it comes to college applications, now all of a sudden you have to sort of do a lot more introspection that you've not really been used to, because no one has really made you do that earlier. You have to decide, what majors do you want to choose? What do you really like? And those essays, I would say, really are a huge process of self-discovery, because you have to say, okay, who am I? What am I? What do I really like? What are my basic traits? I remember one of our students, he was a math student, and he's like, I don't really know what's good about me. I don't really know if there's anything special about me. And as we were talking to him, like, okay, what do you like? What do you like to do? And what do you like to? So as he was answering his questions, both of us realized that he was somebody who is very strong on questioning till he gets to the root of an answer, right? So his trait of using his skill to question, to get down to the root of his answer, helped him in mathematics, helped him in physics, helped him in history, helped him in all of his extracurriculars and everything that he did, in skiing, everything. So the idea is that he didn't even realize that he was somebody who is fundamentally a questioner, right? And so once he realized that in our dialogue and discussion, then a lot of our essays were just about that. Were about the single thread that ties him together, was his ability to question people, to question thought processes, to question why proofs works in mathematics and why they don't, etc. So his essays were about that. But then we also shifted this to, and then as we realized that he was very passionate about things. So every student has a lot of different characteristics that are there within them. There's a lot of passion. Someone could be a great musician, someone could be a great journalist, or just by their ability to express. Someone's a great mathematician, someone's a great football, or a basketball person, or just a good communicator. I had a student who said that, what, yes, I do like to connect, but I don't want to connect with the books. I want to connect with people. That's where my connection lies in. So they discovered that, oh, that great, they can learn a lot from the books, but their connectivity truly lies with people. So when they discovered that their connectivity is, their passion is connecting with people at a deeper level, then their essays were about different aspects of how they went ahead and did that from an internal place, and how they made something bigger of it by organizing events in their community, and very focused events. I think the events were more on, let's do connection workshops, because that's what he was into. How do we connect deeper? What are the questions that we should have and ask each other? And they would build those kinds of things together. So it just like an inherent interest, fundamental interest of his, just broadened it out into something he could do with the community as well. But that's the idea. Each, as we talked about this briefly earlier as well on the stage of rejection, I truly believe that every teenager is a hero, because every teenager has already gone through rejection in some format, right? Either self-rejection, disappointment from others, or for oneself, or feeling like they don't belong, they can't have what they want. And so, but we've risen above that. Every teenager has become resilient and gone above that and done whatever they wanted to pursue. So therefore, every teenager is truly a hero. They've gone through that hero's journey. We just need to extract those stories from them as to what makes them that, and then get those out on a piece of paper. So when you write college essays, you want to be able to give different aspects of who you are, so that when the college admissions committee sees you, they see what you are authentically in one area, but how that carries on to different areas, right? How can you still be a skier in question? How can you still be, a mathematician and still, do the same way? How could math be your subjective major? But why do you want to go to this college? What did you discover by your question? And so when you bring that out on a college, on the gamut of college essays, they get to hear in your authentic voice who you are. And that's our objective. You dig deeper into who you truly are, and let's get those relevant stories that the colleges want to hear about you.
Wow, this is kind of how in real life we should do right too, right? Like even in real life, even without, no matter if you have to write a college essay or not, you need to find your true self, and you need to know what kind of a person you are, and identify who you are as a person, as in terms of socially, in terms of mentally, emotionally, and physically. And it's just so amazing that before you grow up to live in the real world, you get to find who you are, through the help of college essays. And even before you go into the real world and have a chance to find yourself, you do the same practices before even you get to college. That's a really beautiful thing that this system has. It's kind of what I adore a lot too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the whole podcast has been a really informative one, and a really practical and inspiring one. And now when we come towards the end of it, we will ask you, this is a fast five round. It's a section where it's like a rapid fire round. I'll ask you 5 questions in just one word. You have to answer it. All right. So your go-to mindset hack for instant confidence.
Deep breathing.
Yeah. One daily habit that boosts manifestation the most.
The positive affirmation that you will believe.
Your mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your biggest limiting belief you see people struggle with most.
I'm not good enough.
Favorite affirmation for attracting abundance.
But I deserve it. I deserve abundance.
Yeah. One tip for young people to unlock hidden potential.
Be with yourself.
Wow. even if a person listens to and knows these 5 questions and the 5 answers, it's like, a golden treasure in itself. And this is where we come to an end with the podcast. Thank you so much for being here. But before we let you go, one last question I'd like to ask you. The podcast series that I do right now to serve to the community and the Manifest Wishcraft Conversations. This is where I bring people as examples of success journeys and how manifestation kind of helps, and it's truly proven, and how you can use it in your life to become successful. This is what I want people to know, right? How does this journey, or how does this podcast series help people to become successful versions of themselves?
Oh, thank you so much for doing this kind of work, Kavya, because I think what's really important is that people need to know how, right? We all know that this is what we should do, but we're always missing the how. And then there are too many factors like, wait, I can't get there. What's stopping me? So by doing these kind of podcasts, you're helping everybody have the knowledge of that, okay, yes, there are things that are stopping you, but it's not your fault. There are belief systems. So you have to continue on your path. You have to continue on accepting yourself. You have to continue to observe what's coming up. So I think by putting this podcast together, you're giving them that education, which unfortunately is not in our school system today, is not in our workplace today. So where do we get it from, right? We get it from people like you who are able to bring it to the community at large.
Thank
So
you
thank
so
you for that.
much. Thank you so much. That's something that I've been wanting to do, and you put it into beautiful words, and I appreciate. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for sharing your insights today. From understanding how our subconscious shapes our reality, to then breaking the limiting beliefs, and then managing emotions and using mindful thinking to manifest the success. This conversation has been a masterclass in turning challenges into breakthroughs. And for our listeners and for our audience, please remember, your thoughts, your emotions, and daily habits hold the key to create the life you want and the dream life you want. Whether it's boosting confidence, overcoming fears, or staying focused on your goal, the tools Rachna ma'am shared today are really practical and powerful. And I have also practiced each and everything of this. So it's kind of really proven. And thank you again for joining us, Rachna ma'am. And to everyone who's listening and who's watching, start applying these strategies today and believe in your inner strength and watch your life transform. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Stay blessed, stay happy.
Sure. And if you need anything else from me or whatever, let me know, etc.
Sure. I just feel like, there's a lot that I want to give to people, and I want to be able to do so by whatever means that I can. And that's what I'm trying to do with
You're
the
only
podcast.
in high school and you're like, taking out so much time of yours and re-educating yourself every day, redoing it, interviewing so many people. So I think that's amazing what you do. And I really wish you all the best. And if there are times and you have tips that we could do, like, because I do a lot of in-person sessions as well. So if there's in everything they say, let's put this kind of a thing together. I do workshops, right? As you know. But then when I do the workshops, it's like we can do a workshop together just on people understanding their belief system, things like that. If and we could
Of course.
we can do those kind of things together, etc.
Definitely. I would love to. In any way I can help people.
But the second part of it is experiential because we split the whoever the audience is, we split them either into teams or one-on-one, depending on which workshop it is. And then we actually give them a template of what it is that they have to talk about and do. And so, by God's grace, we have had some amazing results where people came back and said, "Oh my God, I realized that my predominant rejection piece is I can't have what I want, right? That's what I struggle with the most." So it's interesting as to how, a lot of these, when we do them on these kind of workshops, it's like a quick way to get lots of people into therapy,
Yeah.
without it being a therapy session as such.
Yeah. And even if any schools or universities or wherever, we could try to arrange some kind of gatherings to tell people a lot about this, because awareness is the key to success, right? So I want to make people aware about this. So the more people can, we could gather and we could talk about it.
To do a podcast with you as well.
Thank you so much. Today was really amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It was great. I enjoyed talking and enjoyed, sharing. And thank you for such amazing questions. And thank you to Parulji for following up for sure.
She say thank. Oh, she's coming. Okay, she's coming again.
Yeah, okay, sure.
No, it's okay. Come on.
Thank you. Thank
Bye,
you so
Parul.
much.
Oh, thank you, Ji. Thank you so much for following up and making this happen. The credit goes to you, really.
It's incredible. Incredible.